Oh, on the bottom right as the purple Protoss, it is Theory for not just I guess his university, but also on Sloth Esports. Yeah, a little bit. Mm, cool. I think so. Now Georgia Tech, who Theory is playing for, does have a pretty good record overall and a 3-0 in spring. So, I would give them the edge over Michigan. That's only 1-2 in spring. But I guess we'll find out how it actually works. Is with the CSL, you have a bit of a different format. 2v2 actually plays a part, and that can kind of change the momentum around. It's just so different than any other way you play a StarCraft 2 tournament. So we'll see. But I definitely think that Theory would be the ace. Mhm. Yeah, nothing crazy at all. Although Theory does have his probe kind of in an interesting position. Maybe just going to save that for a scout later on. We did have Tits McSwags expand on the high ground with the command center, which is usually not a great sign. That was kind of weird. He also had an SCV at the natural, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. But no, he did take the command center at the top, going for another barracks here. So maybe some version of a 3-wax or 2-1-1. But the command center on the high ground is just really it's unorthodox. You don't really want to do that unless you are certain your opponent is doing something aggressive. Yeah, maybe he knew something about Theory prior to getting into this game, or someone told him he would maybe go aggressive, but certainly no other reason to go for that high ground command center. Now, it ended up being a 2-1-1, which Theory does scout here, although we do not have that tech lab spinning, which is a bad sign. A little bit busy with the soccer, but should have Stim already on our way. Oh, yeah, good call. Gateway's at the front and Gateway in proxy. And with that blink, he can definitely take advantage of Tits McSwag's lack of bunker and lack of stim timing. Now, the Reaper gets in there, the natural, but sees actually a very defensive setup with 2 shield batteries. So this doesn't really look suspicious unless he notices kind of like, okay, there's no third and there's no robo. You got to be doing something like where's your Camille going to? And it is going to be to the gateways first and foremost. Oh, despite proxying the gateway, okay, there now. turns into Warp Gate. Usually warping in at home initially, breaking down the rocks. Seems a little counterproductive initially, but maybe afraid of like a Liberator push or tank push later on. Something that Tits McSwag is definitely not doing. Still finishing up Stim, just now transferring over to a starport for Medivacs. Theory could be hitting a pretty nice timing still. And if Tits McSwag actually moves his army out, that could be bad too. Yeah, really good point. I guess it would have been maybe nicer to proxy the gateway on the left side of the Absorbs, where you can just walk in, no high ground defense for the Terran player, but instead just kind of poking and prodding, pressuring. If he gets a stim, that's pretty good, as he can just blink away. But now with I guess that's only a single adept, probably going to be going for some scouting. But he should be careful. You know, if there is a stim and he's not paying attention for a second, Theory could lose a lot of stalkers. Yeah, I gotta say it's a little bit of a weird timing, you know, to put down that fourth gateway in proxy and then not really doing a ton with it. I feel like, you know, if this is parting, some guy who's known for his blink stalker, micro, and all ins and all that, this would maybe even already be done and dusted. But Theory is expanding a little bit later than a normal macro game and is getting charged. It'll be significantly helpful for this oncoming push as Sysmic Swag finally has Stim working on combat shields, and Marauder Slow is actually going to go through the natural. Theory now has an observer in surveillance mode there. hmm Yeah, I mean, Theory's whole build is yeah, not the perfect macro game you would see with Charge Blink, but a little late in the gateways. Now has enough to appropriately warp in as many zealots as he needs, and unfortunately, Tits McSwag might have everything for his bio now. Doesn't have anything in addition besides those medevacs, but no liberators, no widow mines is what I'm specifically thinking of. A couple widow mines or even a couple tanks in good positioning can help take out an army such as this, but just pure bio. Especially with like, you know, when it starts lacking in those upgrades, and he did miss his +1 timing, instead went for double engineering bay. It just starts to really fail against it. He certainly could. I mean, Theory has an observer on this, so he can make the decision, and he does decide to go back home. But man, if the storm was already done, the Templar Archives only just finishing, I think that the base trade would have been in his favor anyway. Now he's got to pull back with the Gateway Army. He's got to cancel his fourth base, get into some decent positioning. I certainly are. Dismix Swag so far, no reaction to the storm or the later TVP. Okay, there's the Ghost Academy. Um, is still going to be far behind in upgrades, so that's kind of to be expected. He might not have gone the 1 engineering bay, 2 engineering bay a little bit later on path that most Terrans do, but he is probably around the same upgrade deficit that Terrans find themselves in this matchup. Oh, those would imagine now a problem. Even a single tank was finally brought to the front lines, but Storm is going to be a bigger problem for this bio. Nothing to say about those storms, so either gotta have really good splits or it's some EMPs.
Oh, we're out of time. The final call is calling. And the light falls lightly between us. Before tomorrow comes and it all gets lost again, the ashes burn down brightest when we've everything to lose. So scribble me out, mistakes erased, forgotten. Life goes on without me.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are preparing to jump into our next 1v1. It does look like we have Plumerant versus Up Yoda, and it's going to be a ZVZ. So I'm pretty excited to see that, Georgia Tech, with Plumerant and Up Yoda from Michigan.
Okay, so Georgia Tech is up 1 already with Theory taking that first game. So we'll see if they can continue the trend.
So without further ado, here we go. Spawning in the top left-hand corner, it is our orange Zerg player from Michigan State, Up Yoda.
And top right as the purple Zerg, it is Plumerant or Georgia.
And we were talking earlier as we were getting into this game here. There's a bit of a skill difference between these players. Up Yoda, just going by his border, is a Silver League player, and Plumerant is, I think, a Masters 2 player. We've seen him come out. He's been kind of one of the solid players on Georgia Tech's roster. So this may be one of those sacrificial lamb games that you do sometimes see in CSL, where they're kind of just throwing Up Yoda out so they have a spot in the lineup, and then maybe hoping for the reverse sweep, unless he's got something really special up his sleeve.
Well, the special thing here is going to be doing an early pull, but if he really is silver, is that what you said? Silver?
Silver, yeah.
Yeah, then unfortunately the execution probably isn't going to be good enough. In fact, I don't think it's actually good enough until maybe you're even masters. And even then, there's so many things that GMs and pros do just a little bit better. So Plumerant might not be going for the safest build in the world. He's actually going for a very normal one. I think he'll have a decent...
Whoa. Every single drone coming off the line with this attack. And I guess this makes sense, right? Because if you really catch your opponent being super greedy, a move might just win here. And it does look like Plumerant doesn't have any units. And I think the unit count of Up Yoda is going to be higher. This could be interesting. I still probably favor Ploomorant, but up Yoda on 20 supply, and Ploomorant's supply might start to plummet once this attack begins.
Yeah, I didn't expect the drones to be pulled. This does change things a little bit. It really is purely numbers here, as Ploomorant does instantly slap down a Spine Crawler and does have 3 extra workers to work with. Really wants to wait for the Lings and really wants to wait for the Queen. That extra damage and the range on her just makes this a lot easier.
Ooh, up Yoda already getting a bunch of his drones surrounded, and I think that means Ploomorant may have won this fight already here. It is going to be an absolute bloodbath. The last few Lings of up Yoda rather come across the map here, but look at Ploomorant's supply. It's not going down at all, and he's doing a good job of mineral walking his drones back and forth between his base. This Queen is now out. He's surrounding the last few Zerglings, and you know, from a silver player, it's like a valiant attempt because I can't think of a single better thing he could have done there with that kind of skill difference.
Agreed. But even then, you know, it still came down to letting his drones get surrounded for that 1 second. Probably was a huge difference maker. The reason that Ploomorant came out of that with 7 workers instead of maybe 2. Not that that would have been any different of a result, but it may have been a little bit closer.
Yeah, so congrats to Ploomorant for putting a second game on the board here for Georgia Tech. They're going up to a 2-0 lead. Can they close things out in this 2v2 series? Find out after this break.
Oh, we're out of time. The final call is calling. And the light falls slightly between us. Before tomorrow comes and it all gets lost again, the ashes burn down brightest when we've everything to lose.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting ready to go into game number 3 here between Georgia Tech and Michigan State University. And I think we're ready to hop right into the game, so let's go. And spawning here in the top right-hand corner, it is our orange Zerg player Tambi. And our purple Protoss player, 7.
They are representing Michigan. And on the other side, for Georgia, it is the pink Terran Box Cube. And the blue Protoss, just G-Shock Cube?
GSOC Cube, I believe is how he told us to pronounce it.
Oh, is it? I don't know. I figure it's Korean, and I figure there's a proper pronunciation in Hangul, but pronunciation's always weird. Anyways.
Yeah, we just asked him. We're not,
G-Sock's
not
good,
clever
yeah.
enough to figure it out.
Yeah, let's go with it then. So currently the guys on the bottom left have their team up to 0. If they win this 2v2, it would just be the end of the series.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they're hoping to do. Tambi, I think, is kind of the ace of Michigan State, and I think he plays in the next series and would presumably also ace for them. And, you know, I gotta imagine if you're Georgia Tech, it's a little bit scary to just play this. Oh, no, he can't ace for them because he's playing in this, so he can only play once more. So that does make him a little bit less scary, but I gotta think just knowing that you have that kind of player in the works, you would certainly rather just close things out here. The Box Cube and the GSOC Cube, the Cube brothers, as we've kind of dubbed them in the CSL, have shown to be a really good 2v2 team, and they've beaten people that would be like double masters or something like more skilled than them, just because 2v2 is kind of funny, where if you practice 2v2 and you know the meta and you play it, you can do some really abusive stuff that someone that's maybe like a higher skill level just doesn't expect coming in.
I'm trying to look at our little sheet here and determine what 2v2 team Tambi and Seven are, but maybe it's a new 2v2 team or they have a different name. I'm not sure which one. But the 2v2 team of Box Cube, the Cube Bros, I guess, are currently sitting at a score of 2-3, so not bad results at all. They are playing an Overgrown Facility where a lot of the other weeks we have seen a super small map that I forgot the name of already. As soon as I thought about it.
Is it Mobius something?
No. Is it? I don't think so. Well, regardless, I think you all know what I'm talking about. The 2v2 map that's just insanely small, has like 5 bases, and that's it. I feel like that's where mostly I've been casting the game. So to actually have Overgrown Facility, which is probably one of the most well-liked / balanced 2v2 map, where you actually get an expansion and multiple expansions kind of safe, is nice to see and will actually result in a bit longer of a game.
Yeah, it does look like here Tambi's starting to be a bit aggressive. With just a few of these lings here, he can maybe start to put a little bit of pressure on, get that scouting off. Scouting so important in 2v2, just because there's twice as many things that could be coming at you, just with how the units synergize, so you definitely want to figure that out. This Reaper on the map for Box Cube already starting to pick off a couple of these weakened lings here at the back, and this first Phoenix on the way out from GSOC Cube. Just going to be scouting right now. Can't actually do any damage without a second Phoenix to back things up. But it is going to see the Phoenix of 7 coming out. And these guys know they're in for Phoenix Wars.
Yeah, so first of all, I like that GSOC Cube just walled off completely. He's got the natural and base expansion, and Overgrown Facility still has you kind of apart from your partner. So if there was going to be a Ling Flood from Tambi, I think the Protoss would be the first one to die. So just, don't even make any holes. And the Phoenix Wars, well, that's kind of to be expected. Phoenix is very strong 2v2 units. Any weaknesses they have in 1v1 can be just made up for by your partner. And the versatility, the speed they have, really, it can't be matched in regards to what Protoss can do in 2v2. And also, it can eventually go into late game air. But PvP in a 2v2, they are both going to get caught on Phoenix for a little while.
Yeah, it does look like we have the first 4 Phoenix out here, and once that happens, you can start to see those kind of engagements where you pick off a lot of workers, things can start dying really quickly, and things can snowball out of control. But because 7 has Phoenix of his own, things could kind of seesaw back and forth just in a really uncomfortable way here for either player. If you manage to get a good engagement off, wipe your opponent's Phoenix, suddenly you're going to have complete air superiority forever when things are starting off this early here. So far, neither of those engagements are starting up, and just a bit of worker harassment at the end while 7 uses his Phoenixes defensively.
Yeah, alright. Well, what are the other races doing? Zerg player is currently getting up to a lair. There's something fancy going on at the Phoenix what's happening right now, and GSOC is losing rarely. And then our Terran player is just going into a decent number of Marines with a tank, but definitely into mech with that second factory. All 4 players have their expansions ready to go, even the Zerg on 3 bases. Very appropriate macro game here, but it might just come down to who wins the PvP game. It's so dramatic when someone wins Phoenix Wars that they'll have much larger army left over. And one way you can win Phoenix Wars is to get the range upgrade. He's currently trying to do that.
Whoa, GSOC Cube taking a great fight there, actually completely resetting the Phoenix count of his opponent in terms of what's on the map here. And that was really well done. Suddenly, he's going to have uncontested air superiority for a little bit as he moves across the map. He's probably going to be looking to do some damage with that.
This could be a lot. The drop from Box Cube is trying to support him, but it's not stim, it's not combat shields. It's really just a support / harassment unit, while Box Cube actually gets to a stronger army. And the weakness of mech, sometimes is that anti-air. That's where GSOC Cube's covering his partner's weakness and vice versa.
Yeah, here comes the drop, but Tambi doing a great job of just kind of warding that drop off with the lings. Ooh, GSOC Cube sending in more Phoenixes kind of in a conga line to die here. If he loses another one, that's going to be so painful. He had the advantage there, and I think he got a little bit overzealous, extended it, bled out a lot of units. And despite what 7 lost, it looks like Tambi able to get those Hydras out. And once you get a critical mass of the Hydras, Phoenix is suddenly not so scary, especially when your opponent is kind of trapped back on his side of the map, being defensive, as you're getting up that number of Hydras where they can still be a bit vulnerable.
The Phoenix range was a lot faster for G-Star Cube, not as fast as I thought it was going to be, so, you know, 7's actually catching up here, and that might not be as huge a factor as once thought. G-Star Cube is also trying to get +1 flyer weapons, air weapons, I guess is what it's called. It doesn't actually do anything until +3, I think, is the math here. It doesn't take away one shot from the Phoenix Wars. It obviously adds damage overall, and that's nice, but you don't usually see a more drastic effect on, like, you know, just an extra Phoenix.
Yeah, it looks like trying to break down these rocks here is Tambi. 7 kind of patrolling around with his Phoenixes, maybe hoping to scare off any units that start checking by those rocks. And this is going to open up a pretty huge attack here. Because G-Sock Cube has been so focused on getting these Phoenixes out, there's actually nothing in place to protect this base. And now the Phoenixes are going to see these low health rocks. Tambi pulls his Lings back, but he can knock that down very quickly and start an attack whenever he desires.
It's going to be definitely difficult for Box Cube to be helping his partner at all times. The Sensor Tower, a little bit wonky, is a lot more afraid of Phoenixes or attacks by air than it is really covering important pathways of attack. So Box Cube's army, I mean, he's got a decent number of tanks and still an odd amount of... He's actually going, like... He's actually added on a barracks. He's going something really weird here, but it's still a decent army. It's just not going to be in position, perhaps. If Tambi just decides to go up the rocks, he'll only be dealing with one of the 2v2 partners.
Yeah, but 7 actually managing to reset the Phoenix count of his opponent. And he is making Phoenixes 3 at a time as G-Sec Cube, which gives him a little bit more room, especially with these Stalkers on the ground here. But that's going to open up some space for Tambi to try to make a push in at the other side. But walking into tanks with slow Banelings and Hydra is not going to end well.
Yeah, if there's one thing that Box Cube's army does well is when it's siege, it just sits there on the high ground and blasts away. So that's still a good defense. But Tambi appropriately just saying, okay, I won't go there. I'll outposition you. And again, Box Cube just doesn't have any knowledge of this is happening. The Xel'Naga is not even taken by G-Sock Cube. And it's not looking great for Cube Brothers.
G-Sock Cube in so much trouble as Tambi rolls up this ramp. He's going to just go ahead and right-click on that base. The Baneling's getting right into the probe line. And suddenly G-Sock Cube clinging to life support here as he just gets absolutely steamrolled by this army. Does look like Box Cube gonna reposition his own army to try to help his teammate out. A couple of Stalkers come in here, and this might be enough to fend off the Phoenixes for now, but they can just pick off those vulnerable siege tanks from the back, force the Marines to reposition, and that can allow the Hydras to safely maneuver to their heart's content.
Wow, we finally have Box Cube getting stim as well as Blue Flame. This guy's going for a really weird composition, which again would not be so bad if his partner hadn't already taken so many losses to the Phoenix War, and he wasn't simply also just being out macroed. Tambi, with now 5 bases and a gold included there, can remax on these Hydra Ling Baneling armies, also going up to a Hive. 2-2's already finishing. I mean, Tambi and 7 look really quite good, even if 7's lacking in supply a little bit.
Yeah, and they're just coming up here, putting on the hurt once again. Box Cube feeling like he needs something magic to try to get out of this. He does have this Raven on the way, but Tambi is already going up to double Spire. He's anticipating anything his opponents might do. He's going to be wanting to get those double air upgrades out, go up to Greater Spire for Brood Lords, and he's taking the whole map. I mean, he has 3 bases, 4 bases here in a 2v2. That's a pretty rare sight.
The Phoenixes of Box Cube, or sorry, Box Cube is Sarad. The Phoenixes of 7 are just actually doing so much damage to G-Sock Cube. Not even let him get any more Phoenixes. Like, really should just be probably giving up on it. He is trying to get into Blink, and maybe at that. Oh, I thought I saw Charge on the way, but no, it's just Blink. Well, it doesn't really matter. He'll be able to afford any of those units.
Yeah, I mean, G-Sock Cube is sitting here at 41 supply, which is pretty brutal at this stage in the game. He's just been picked over and over and over by those Phoenixes. And Box Cube is doing his best. He actually hasn't taken that much damage. He's getting Widow Mines out. He does have Tunneling Claws, so maybe with like a few good A few good Widowmine hits. That splash damage can turn things around. Tambi's army in particular is mostly kind of soft and squishy and bio-y, so a couple of good Widowmine hits could do some real damage, but it looks like Boxcube actually trying to get the Phoenixes, and with these drilling claws, he might be able to pull something off.
It's a pretty cool idea to go for the Widowmines against the Phoenixes, but unfortunately, especially now that they are revealed when they pop, as long as Seven is paying kind of close attention, splits a little, it shouldn't be that bad. And it's really not. Tambi now bringing up the Hydra army with a couple of Vipers, takes out G-Suckscube's base, could absolutely take on Boxcube's army too with a couple good Blinding Clouds.
Yeah, and I gotta think that's what he's thinking about doing here, especially with all the lifts that that Seven can offer here. He can just pick up most of the tanks, and then the Hydras can move into it, kill the bio, and then shoot the tanks while they're up in the sky. GG is called, and that's going to be the end of game number 3. Michigan putting one on the board.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, bringing back the momentum in the 2v2 specifically. It's just a bit of a weirder situation, and in this case, I do think that Tambi was just really, a good player and probably could have carried a little bit there, and probably did. That also is another factor of the 2v2, like finding the players you want to play it without necessarily giving up your ace necessarily. So that's occasionally where you see the comebacks happen.
Yeah, mathematically, every reverse sweep has to start in the 2v2.
It's true.
So maybe we'll see that happen here today. Don't go anywhere, guys. We will be right back. Hey, babe. So is the contract all signed? Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. Michigan just managed to put one on the board against Georgia Tech, saving their team from getting swept here in the last regular season game. I think we're just about ready to hop into our next 1v1. It's match point here, so let's go. Spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have our orange Zerg player for Michigan State once again. It is Tambi.
In the bottom right, as the blue Protoss player for Georgia, it is Pluto.
So Tambi kind of got to show off his skill as the dominant player in that 2v2. And I think he's probably pretty heavily favored to win here against Pluto. Pluto's in Diamond. We saw Tambi as a GM. He's been kind of the star player of Michigan State here. And I'm curious to see, I don't know if I've seen him play any PvZs yet. I don't know too much about his style. But just knowing about the skill level, I've got to give him kind of the favoritism to win here.
Agreed. I don't know much about a specific style, but just based off the ranks and their scores in the CSL, with Tambi being at a 6-1 and Pluto being at a 1-3, yeah, I'm going to give it to Tambi. But this is where like the extra dynamic of being a team game really comes into play, not just the 2v2s, but also map roster order can be a really big deal. Coaches can actually seem like geniuses for sending out one person before another person, In this case, Tambi gets sent out for the 2v2, probably to ensure that they even have a shot after going down 2-0, but then appears in the 4th match, so that means there's no ace match for their best player. That's maybe a little bit odd, because Pluto, no disrespect, but like I think he actually is beatable by maybe some of the other players on the team being at Diamond, where Tambi is probably the only shot that Michigan has against Theory.
Yeah, but it's really tough because CSL is Pro League format, so these players blind select against each other. So you are like kind of guessing where they're gonna be. Maybe they were hoping to grab Theory. I know, like, last year, Temple did the same map order every game because they felt really comfortable winning, and then they changed it in the semis because they were hoping to get, like, blind countered. And we don't have, like, all that info available to us, you know, what map orders they've done previously and that kind of thing. But when you're on a game like this that I believe is the elimination game for both teams here, only one of them going to be advancing on to the playoffs, you can do funky stuff and try to trip up the opposing team.
That's a really good point. Maybe they were trying to figure out whatever, you know, their opponent was trying to do, but it doesn't really work out because I think Tambi does take this game, but then I worry for Michigan's chances in the ace match. But hey, maybe Pluto has got something up his sleeve, and I shouldn't even be, you know, counting him out. If he does win, that's it for his team. It's, you know, they're good to go, and congratulations. But I gotta imagine the time of this being played, they're thinking about the ace match a little.
And can you tell me what time you're on? My game just kind of had a huge hiccup.
304.
304. Alright, so it does look like pushing up onto this third base a little bit with the Adept is Tambi.
You didn't tell me when to go, so.
Oh, sorry. I am on 321 right now, if you want to catch up.
Okay. Alright, I'm ready. So 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, guys, we are casting this series for replays. Unfortunately, my interface kind of bugged out, and I have the units killed, workers killed bar up. Do you know the hotkey for that?
Well, workers killed is Control R. Units killed is.
Oh, and there we go. Yeah, that was like the old pre-game heart one. I think because it's a replay, maybe that's why it came up.
Well, it's fixed now. Tambi is going for two interesting things. So one is an Overlord drop, but then also a Roach Warren, which might just be defensive. So a little bit of an attack, and then I guess in case Pluto was pressured into doing his own like counter, that's where the Roach Warren would make sure that no Adepts snuck by and did too much damage. That's not really where Pluto was going anyways. Currently he has a Twilight Council and a Robe, but nothing researching at the Twilight. And those Lings are now doing damage.
Yeah, actually getting a lot of damage in very quickly here are these Lings. There's only a single Adept to try to hold things off, and that shield battery is going to help out, so the Lings can't exactly fight it. But they can just leave. I think Tambi's going to be more than happy with picking off those 8 probes just for 2 Lings.
Yeah, that was pretty good. It also got a really great scout of an all-in occurring. Unfortunately, Pluto now especially doesn't have gas, since he took the guys off of gas to avoid the Lings and never took his natural, which I feel like you would need a little bit extra gas if you're going to try and afford both the Twilight Council upgrade and a couple of Immortals. But regardless, maybe if you had nothing but Zealots too, I don't know. There's nothing going off in the Twilight Council. It's actually looking kind of useless. Maybe he follows up with a Dark Shrine. Okay, he's going to start throwing out that charge, but it's late, and that timing was seen by Tambi.
Yeah, and even still, like, just being annoying with this Dropper Lord as Tambi, he knows that his opponent has no AA effectively, so he can just afford to threaten with this Overlord, threaten with this Overlord, threaten with this Overlord, and at very least, maybe you force out a Stalker or two that Pluto doesn't want to build, or Pluto can't move out, right? Those are the two options. He has to leave some of his army behind to deal with the Lings that will come out if there's some kind of drop here. And on the other side of the map, that leaves Tambi free to just explode his Roach production. And this all-in coming out of Pluto isn't actually scary.
No, not so much. Charge on Immortal sounds actually terrifying, but unfortunately with the damage he took early on and just a little bit off of the build, Tambi is actually overreacting. I mean, this is what you should do against the 2-base all-in when it's done like super, super close to the correct timing, but in this case, it's maybe a little excessive, doubling the army supply, and only one Immortal to worry about. Just probably needs a couple Ravagers, and that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, but he still has like double the worker count of his opponent. It's not like he's falling into any kind of trap here.
Yeah.
I think he's just gonna stomp this army and then probably walk across the map and try to kill his opponent because, like you said, he's at double the army supply here. And I think when he sees this roll up with the Warp Prism, he's like, oh, I was worried about this. I don't think I needed to be. These Zealots actually are gonna get on top of the Roaches. The Queen's doing a good job of dishing out damage from behind here. And that Immortal Falls, that's the really scary damage dealer. And I mean, this Warp Prism's still here and it can be a bit annoying, but on the other side of the map, Tambi already turning on the heat for his opponent.
There's a little bit of a mistake from Tambi with the Ravages in the front. Probably could have gone even better, but clearly that was an amazing hold for a Zerg player. And now breaking into the natural, Pluto is in a ton of trouble. Unfortunately, the Zealots just, I mean, I guess they will eventually clean the Roaches up. They have that charge. They're definitely more effective. It's not like cleaning up a handful of Lings. It's going to take a while, and Tambi was even microing here, either target firing the probes or trolling kiting the Zealots back. This could have done a lot more damage. As is, it's barely going to survive and deal a little bit more.
Yeah, and now here comes the second wave of this attack, and that's just going to be all of Tambi's Lings. He's leaving his Roaches at home to keep dealing with the drops here. But these Lings, there's just nothing to deal with them. There's two Zealots. They can get surrounded right quick. But Big Warping is going to come in. That's going to drive the Lings away here. But once there's a few more of these Roaches coming in, I'm not sure if Pluto's going to be able to do anything against this.
I don't think so. Lings are still waiting to be dropped in the main once the Adept leave, and the Warp Prism harassment has been stalled out. Tambi leaving a significant chunk of units to deal with that, maybe a little bit more than he needs, but Pluto's not even paying attention to his Warp Prism anymore. It's all about the defense in the front. Now the shield battery gone, out of energy, the Lings and Roaches should be enough. A little bit of an awkward micro move right there, but eventually gets us around. That was actually just awkward by Tambi.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird fight. He's going to trade out some of his supply pretty cost ineffectively, but he does have a lot of supply to play with. He can make quite a few more mistakes like that before he's out of this game here. But now this is another mistake potentially. With the charge, the Zealots could have tried to run down these Roaches, but Tambi looking to just go home. He didn't quite snipe the Warp Prism yet. I think he really wants to kill that Warp Prism and then F2 a move.
Yeah, probably. You know, whatever works and whatever Tambi's doing is obviously working. Banelings could have made this a little bit faster, perhaps, and he could certainly be teching up right now. Certainly one thing to worry about, especially when you see charge in a 2-base all-in, I feel nowadays, is the follow-up Dark Shrine has gotten surprisingly popular. I guess I'm mostly thinking of a TVP build, but still, you gotta worry about the Dark Shrine being hidden somewhere. It's not. The Overlord sees the main. But that could have been perhaps a way for Pluto to get back into it, and Tambi has not considered that yet. Doesn't.
Yeah, well, here comes the attack. A lot of Roaches, a lot of Lings. I think he's just done with the Warp Prism. He's not going to be worrying about it. He's saying, you know what? Even if you get my natural or you get my main or something, I'm going to kill you before all this ends. And the Dark Shrine is nowhere to be seen. That's kind of the one comeback mechanic that I think Pluto could use. Taking a third is not the way to try to come back into this game when there's a huge Roach army barreling down your front door.
Yeah. Zealots weren't really the way either. When there was a low amount, sure, why not? But maybe some of that Chrono could have gone on a couple of Immortals. The supply really would tell the tale, even if it's the cost-inefficient supply of Roaches. And there's the tap out.
All right, bringing everything tied up 2-2 as we prepare to hop into our final game. It's going to be the ace match. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Oh, we're out of time. The final call is calling. And the light falls slightly between us. Before tomorrow comes and it all gets lost again, the ashes burn down bright.
ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the ace match of the CSL. This is going to be our last game in the regular season. And the players for this ace are Theory versus Tits McSwag again.
Very cool. That's another TVP.
So without any further ado, let's go on Catalyst LE. Spawning here in the top left-hand corner, it is our Purple Protoss player for Sloth and Georgia Tech, Theory.
In the bottom right, as the green Terran, it is Tits McSwag. It was a decent game. These guys played against each other for the first game of the night. Like I said, maybe I didn't give Tits McSwag enough credit when I was talking about how perhaps Michigan would have wanted Tambi as the ace, but at the end of the day, Tits McSwag did lose to Theory, didn't apply enough pressure before Storm, and didn't have an answer to Storm. Could the same thing happen here? Because it wasn't just that he was denied on all pressure points, it's that Tits McSwag just didn't really try and do a lot of pressure until he had medevacs with combat shields, and really it was only like one push in, and then it was a lot of weird army movement, if you remember, just a lot of positioning.
Yeah, and I mean, Theory made some mistakes that game too, but like he never seemed to lose control of the game, even with kind of a weird opener and some weird decisions with that 4-gate pressure he did. He just looked more solid. But I mean, maybe McSwag is gonna have something, a little bit of swag up his tits here.
Hopefully for his team, that's what happens. They're depending on him to get him through the ace match and get him through to the playoffs. Is it? Oh, I have to cancel that slidey. That's awkward.
Yeah, getting into the playoffs is the kind of the big stake here. Yeah. That was funky.
So the supply depot was already kind of weird for Theory to see, but considering that last game Tits McSwag the last game they played, he went for a command center on the high ground. There was a chance that was just the confusion. Supply depot, okay, there must be a command center on the high ground, because the build actually is, even if you go for a command center, supply depot, barracks, command center, supply depot, or factory supply depot, sorry. So point is, Theory, being a pretty good player, should recognize that was a very fast factory. There is no command center. It's one base from Tits McSwag here, but nothing in proxy.
Yeah, I think one basing, kind of a cool play here. Maybe not feeling super comfortable in that macro game. And 1-1-1 coming out. I sense a bit of Wings of Liberty here as Tits McSwag starts powering up for this attack.
Okay, it's not nearly as effective as it was in Wings of Liberty for tons of reasons, but sure. One base did also have its power. Oh boy, was it Legacy of the Void? I think it was like the beginning of Legacy of the Void. It kind of came back in this matchup as a hyper aggressive opener into sometimes an okay macro game, but that lasted for a couple months. It really fell off, and we have now 2 base all-ins and 3 base all-ins that seem to be a lot more potent in the meta. But you know, these guys are actually very good. So when I say at this level, I don't mean like bronze or something like that. I mean, at the non-pro level, many things can work. It's about execution, and a lot of times about, does your opponent even know what to do against this weird stuff?
Yeah, so he's going to be stepping out. It looks like it's going to be a Marine tank push. That first medevac is going to give a little bit of extra oomph and microability to this army. There's no tech lab or anything like that on the barracks. So this isn't like one of those 2-1-1 pushes you might see with Stim or Combat Shield or anything like that. It's just going to be kind of the raw firepower of the Marines with that anchoring unit of the siege tanks here.
Yeah, and the anchor unit siege tank, that's a good way to put it. It is the important part of this push. The Marines are fodder / consistent DPS. Now, Theory is taking this kind of casually, but I think it's solely his right to do so. Again, one base build is not super effective. Pulls the probes to make sure the tank would have been killed as fast as possible, something to kind of tank for the stalkers. And then he had a shield battery to fall back on. Started boosting up Blink, and once that's done, it should be the end of Tits McSwag's push.
Yeah, and it looks like Tits McSwag gonna come around here on this little flank and try to make something happen. Theory's doing a really good job of checking any positions that Tits McSwag might be moving, and he's gonna try to get these bunkers down, but these SCVs should get immediately targeted here And it's already looking like the wind has kind of been knocked out of Tits McSwag's sails here.
The wind has been knocked out of his tit sails. They're just flapping in the wind, caught tits. Yeah, this isn't looking so hot. I kind of struggle to think of when this does work, other than when the probe doesn't get the scout, and it's just a complete surprise, as it doesn't work against a Twilight opener, which can, in some regards, be called greedy. For instance, Cyclone openers can do a lot of damage here, and it doesn't. I'm guessing it doesn't work versus a Robo opener either. Maybe a Stargate opener? Nah, you just get a Phoenix. No, I'm not sure whether this would work.
Yeah, so I love what Theory's doing here. He's just getting a Dark Shrine. He knows that being so economically hurting, Tits McSwag is going to be dropping every mule on Earth right now. And he's probably not going to be saving anything for scans.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely one way to do it, and it is just DTCD is just super effective against any type of tank push, 1 base or 2 base, because you are saving scans for both offensive and defensive properties, and that's just usually a little too expensive. Stalker's growing way too high in number, take out the tank easily, and that Dark Shrine might not even have to be used.
Yeah, it does look like Tits McSwag is going to see it now, so maybe he'll save 1 scan, but doesn't even matter. GG is called, and Georgia Tech takes the final series of our regular season.
All right. I mean, I did predict that with their score before this, but certainly Michigan put up a really good fight and took it the ace match.
Yeah, so big congrats to Georgia Tech here. Michigan going down 3-2. Thank you so much for watching the regular season, guys. I think we're going to be back in 2 weeks to start getting into those playoffs. The top 8 teams get through. So thank you for watching with us, and we'll see you guys in March for the playoffs.
Oh, we're out of time. The final call is calling. And the light falls slightly between us. Before tomorrow comes, and it all gets lost again. The ashes burn down brightest when we've everything to lose. And so scribble me out. Mistakes erased, forgotten. Life goes on without me. But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell. But I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom, and I won't change, I won't phase out. I know.